So how about this altar? These dirt parfaits that the liturgical art team created for us today. We began a series last week, A Spiritual Revolution, Reimagining God. Today I want to talk about, as you might have guessed, dirt or soil. And it's a huge topic, and actually, the more I got into it, I thought, I could do 3 sermons on this. So I'm going to leave a lot out, but I want us to start thinking about it, all right? So God was once approached by a scientist who said, listen, God, we've decided we don't need you anymore. These days we can clone people, we can transplant organs, and do all sorts of things that are considered miraculous, really. And God replied, don't need me? Okay, you're a scientist, so how about we have a theory? Let's put your theory to the test. Why don't we have a competition to see who can make a human being? Say, a male human being. The scientist agrees. You're on, God. So God declares they should do it like he did in the good old days when he created Adam. Fine, said the scientist as he bends down and scoops up a handful of dirt, all ready to go. And all of a sudden God says, whoa, not so fast. Get your own dirt. The creation story as we know it it's not a scientific account. It wasn't meant to be. But it's full, this story. It's full of symbol. It's full of meaning. It's a treasure trove for us to explore. In fact, the great theologian Walter Brueggemann says, think of it as a liturgical poem. Well, Adam and Eve. Adam, the word Adam, is really from the Hebrew word Adamah, which literally means red earth or mud. Adam, mud, dirt. And Eve, Hava, Eve means to become or to breathe. So humans are soil and life, dirt and spirit. Isn't that beautiful? Ashes to ashes, from the ground we have come, and to the ground we return. Diana Butler Bass, in her book Grounded, says basically this means we are animated dirt. The soil is alive, pulsating with life. My dog Sheba loves to roll in the grass, roll in the dirt. When I'm walking her, sometimes if she sees a really great lawn, she just has to stop and roll in it. And I mean roll in it. It's like she's on a high, sniffing the grass, rolling around, pulsating with joy. She loves to roll in the dirt, especially right after I wash her. And she loves to dig. She loves to dig in the dirt. And no matter how many places we try to cover up in our yard so that she cannot dig, she will find the one spot that we missed and dig a hole. And I always say to her, what are you digging for? There's nothing there. But I'm wrong. There's plenty there. And she knows it. There's a whole world going on, and she is connected to it. When I was a kid, I loved dirt. I loved the ground. In fact, my siblings were much older, so I grew up almost like an only child. And our German Shepherd dog, Heidi, was my constant companion. When I was as young as 2 years old, we lived out in the country, but on a busy road. My mother, even at 2 years old, would let me out and wander because the dog would never let me get near the road. She would always be between the road and me. I spent a lot of time on the ground with my dog. When I was just a little bit older, I used to dig in the dirt, pick out the worms, and sell the worms on a roadside stand to make money. I was a soil entrepreneur even at that age. I was never afraid of the dirt. I loved it. In fact, I remember distinctly, you know how you have these childhood memories? Maybe not a lot of them, but some of them are just so vivid. And you don't know why you remember that particular one. But I remember when I was in second grade and I had a matching top and short outfit, pink flowers, if you can picture that. But and I wanted to wear it to school, and my mother said, okay, but it's expensive, it's really nice, you can't get it dirty. Oh no, I won't, I said. Well, that day at recess, I got into a game with all the boys, a baseball game, and I got up to bat, and boom, I hit a beautiful hit into the field, and I ran around first base, and I saw they weren't going to make it, so I ran to second, and they threw the ball, and I saw it coming, and I slid into second base. What I failed to mention was there was a rainstorm the day before, so it was this huge puddle. But I was safe. And I mean, completely half of me was caked in mud, where the teacher had to send me home to get changed. Fortunately, my mother had a good sense of humor. But as I grew into adulthood, I grew away from the dirt and the soil, from the earth. My relationship was more distant and disconnected. Maybe I bought into the myth that cleanliness is next to godliness, which is, however, not in the Bible. And maybe I kind of inculcated subconsciously the kind of theological equation that dirt equals sin. I mean, think about how we talk about things that are nasty or... In fact, if you soil your clothes, it means that you have stained them. To soil something is to make it unclean. You know, we are offspring of the Industrial Revolution and creators of and living in the technological revolution, and marvelous things have come from these, but the downside is that we have distanced ourselves from our connection to the earth. In fact, in our culture, you kind of come from the country, right, to the city, as if it's somehow a less than thing to live or to be might we say, a country bumpkin. Now, I think this is really turning itself around. Now it's really cool to live in the country, right? But somehow we've made a hierarchy. And I am sure that you would agree with me that we have a distorted relationship to the earth these days. I think this has come from a number of things. One is our religious tradition. We've often been taught to have dominion over the earth rather than to be in harmony with the earth. And in our market economy, the earth is something to be controlled and profited from. And I want to contend that if we had had a different view of and relationship to the earth, we wouldn't be at the disastrous moment that we are in with the current state of our environment. Would you agree with that? I think some wonderful things came out of the climate summit in San Francisco this weekend. I heard people speak with hope on the radio. But we must all hang on to that climate change is perhaps the most important moral issue of our time. Yeah, that could use an amen, another one. Diana Butler Bass talks about this time that she went to the farmer's market and she was talking to an author, Forrest Pritchard, who wrote a book called Gaining Ground, a memoir of becoming a farmer. And when she asked him about religion, he said, nah, I'm not religious. I used to be Episcopalian, but I'm not anymore. And she said, well, do you consider yourself secular? And he paused and he said, well, no. There's no such thing as a secular farmer. The seasons are spiritual and the soil, well, The soil is spiritual. And he tells about a time of kneeling on the ground and feeling at one with the soil. We know, but we often forget that our life depends on the soil. Our future depends on the health of the soil. My nephew, Brandon Smith, is the national leader of the Soil Health Division for the USDA Natural Resources Conservation Service. That's what he does. He spends his days across the country helping farmers keep their soil healthy organically. Last week, I invited us to reconsider the vertical theology that many of us had been taught, and to imagine God as the ground of our being and of all being. To consider rethinking the God above to the God within, the immanence of God, the intimacy of God in all of life. Now, I'm not talking about pantheism, which is that God is everything, but as I've mentioned before, panentheism, right? Pan, everything, and in, theism, God. God in everything. God is not a tree is not God, but God is within the tree, animating the life. God is animating the life that is pulsating from this altar. This altar is alive in ways that we may not see, but that is real. The world is in God. I know I've been saying that like a lot, right? Because it takes a while to really think about that. Rather than thinking God in the world is in God. The soil is as mysterious and complex and alive as gazing into the night sky. In fact, some people call the soil a sacrament. The great theologian Sally McFague, who talks about re-imaging God, offers the metaphor of body to describe the relationship between God and the world. She's reminding us of both scientific truth and a sacred mystery. What if, she asks, we saw the earth as part of the body of God, not as separate from God, who dwells elsewhere, but as the visible reality of the invisible God? As the visible reality of the invisible God, Gaia, right? Other religions have a deep connection to the earth. Jesus lived close to the earth. His parables, his sayings, his teachings, the rituals he left us with are grounded in dailiness. I mean, think about it. The Eucharist, our primary symbol and ritual in the Christian tradition. Bread, wheat grown from the earth, grounded, baked, offered. Wine, vine grown in the earth, producing succulent grapes which are crushed and become wine. And then we are invited to take and eat, take and drink. Take in the life of God in an intentional way. Are you with me? Yes. When Jesus talked about the soil, he also talked about the soul. Just change the I to a you for a moment. When he gave the parable, he knew about the condition of soil. He knew about the life of God. And he knew about soul matters also. So how's your soil? How's your soul? Is it healthy? Is it nourished? Is it deep and complex and rich? It is. But are you in touch with that? Am I in touch with that? Or have you let your soul become dry, rocky? Or have you let the birds of despair or resentment or anger or self-doubt pluck up that which could grow? You know, friends, I think our souls could use some soil. So, put your hands in the dirt and feel the life, and make your prayer that your soul becomes as vibrant as that soil. Or better yet, if you can, and you're able, lay down on the earth. You don't have to roll around, but lay down. Lay down on the earth. Time in my life, I was going through some of the most difficult times I had ever gone through. I felt like all I knew was grief and sorrow. And I went to New Mexico, to Ghost Ranch, where Georgia O'Keeffe lived, and in Abiquiu, and painted her most beautiful paintings. And I truly was, you know that expression, beside myself? I was beside myself. I couldn't inhabit my own being in that time. And I climbed up on one of those beautiful red-rocked hills, and I laid down on the earth, prostrate on the earth. First on my back, then on my stomach, and the warmth of the earth began to infuse me. And I began to pray, earth, heal me. Take these sorrows that I cannot bear any longer. And the earth absorbed that grief, because she can. And the earth healed me. And like Jacob from last week, I said, surely God is in this place, and I did not know it. Let your soul be connected, refreshed, renewed, deepened by the very earth, the soil, the dirt on which we walk. And when you do, perhaps you'll hear God say, hey, that's my dirt. Amen.